You are listening to Level Up Your Gaming Podcast, episode 103, Better NPC Creation Again. In today's episode, we talk about better NPC creation once again. Jared has some new techniques that he is using which makes for a better NPC creation. We also discuss how you can make your world feel more fleshed out with better NPC creation than it actually may be. If you'd like to participate in the discussion or leave us feedback, you can contact us at levelupyourgamingpodcast@gmail.com or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/levelupyourgaming. If you like the content and want to hear more of the show, subscribe and will ensure you don't miss an episode. New episodes come out almost every Wednesday. Also, please review, tell a friend about the podcast, or share with your gaming group. Now sit back and enjoy the episode. Welcome into the Level Up Your Gaming Podcast. My name is Aaron, and joining me virtually because my tires on my car don't seem to want to cooperate with me this year, Jared. How you doing today, Jared?
Good. Not bad. I mean, better than you, obviously.
Yeah, I didn't even know if we were going to get this recording in, given the nature of what just happened.
Don't worry, we're going to get you some nice off-road tires for your beautiful car. Okay,
Gonna look so hideous and monstrous.
It's not. They're going to look very classy, I assure you. Actually, this week, when I traveled to Arkansas for some account meetings, I got my Dodge Ram, my 2018 Dodge Ram Black. Oh, I was having a moment. It's the truck of my dreams, but it doesn't have the 2.5-inch lifting or leveling puck. So there's some things that still needed to be done, but I was overjoyed.
Yes, and we were supposed to actually have an interview with another podcasting group, and we're hopefully going to get that rescheduled here, and get that out to you soon. So to the guys over at Venture Forth, Ethan and Shane particularly, I'm sorry if you're listening to this. The world didn't want me to get to Jared's today.
No, on the highway. That's the most terrifying part of the story. It's on a Chicagoland highway.
Yeah, it's on a major highway. It was
nothing but a suggestion.
Yes, and there was no regard. Like, I'm sitting there with my flashers on in like an emergency pull off because I'm in between construction, and like people are just like, like right by me. I'm like,
Chicago traffic, bumper to bumper at 70 miles an hour.
I'm like, I'm gonna die. Like,
when Aaron actually called me, I was like, do not exit the vehicle. Like, whatever you do, until there's emergency lights behind you.
Yeah, it was bad. I'm like, man, this guy, when he got out there, I was like, oh my God. I'm like, I feel so bad. I couldn't look back at like the cars coming in because it's all one lane and we're just right off this emergency pull off. And I'm just like, somebody's gonna clip him. And I'm gonna have to then call 911 and be like, I just witnessed a murder.
Technically, it would most likely be negligent manslaughter.
Yeah, whatever one it is, but still, I'm sitting there like, oh my God, like
plead it down, just manslaughter.
So, but here I am. I'm back. It took me forever to get back home because I'm on a donut.
I did not think we were going to make this podcast. Yes. I was like, there's no freaking way.
No. But here we are, and we're going to give you a subject. Again, sorry about last week. I didn't record, and we are lacking in the hopper, so we're going to fill that thing back up, and we're going to get you some good content here. And we're starting with this week's episode, which is creating better NPCs. Numero dos. We are going to be talking about it a second time because Jared has some new methods and some new techniques that we need to talk about.
I do. So, it's been quite a while since we've talked about how to build a better NPC. And a lot of times we focus on villains and specifically the antagonists of your story. This time, what I have really done over the last couple of months has been evolving and literally was only the application of 3 different changes. Now that I've numbered them, I'm going to forget them as I go. So I hope everyone's ready for that.
Number 3 might surprise you because Jared will forget it.
Yes, Jared will forget it. So the first change I actually had was, and Aaron and Brian provided me some really good feedback on that, was developing my descriptions. So in my descriptions, I started adding appearance levels to the descriptions. And Aaron and Brian reported that they both liked that because they could understand, is this person an average looking person? Are they one of the pretty people? Are they a supermodel? Are they thug ugly like I am? So I've started adding that in at the very end because in White Wolf, it is a dot related system. So, I'd say they have 3 levels of appearance or they have 2 levels of appearance. It doesn't mesh with the entire flowness. It doesn't match with how I usually do the description, which is, very formulaic. So I started adding that to the end, and I got into a good discussion with Brian and Aaron about ways to evolve my description making. And Aaron said, you know what? You put the clothing in, and really, I don't need to know that. Like, it just hinders the description. Because I'd always come up to this problem of what are they wearing? And the thing is that unless you are doing a D&D campaign, or you're going with, let's say, a more thematic system like Firefly. If you look at Firefly, they almost never change clothes. Or in an area where essentially people wear the same clothes every day, Wild West, you really didn't have that much selection. You might have 2 outfits. And in the Dark Ages, you probably have 1 pair of pants. But in the modern times, we all tend to wear different clothes on different days. Some days I wear my Batman shirt. Some days I wear my Wonder Woman shirt. Some days I wear, I don't know, Enter X. Now,
but if you're at home and it's cold, you'll always be wearing a cardigan.
Even when it's hot, I'm always wearing a cardigan. Okay, because cardigans are the perfect sweater. All right,
you do. You always wear that cardigan.
I like cardigan sweaters. I think I look very fetching. Do you disagree?
It's very Jared. I cannot deny it's very Jared.
It's the hills in me. Okay, we like our knit sweaters. Okay, I come from a trailer park, but I come from the hills. But the thing is, though, clothing typically changes day to day. So what I've started doing is I've started removing that, actually. Now, again, in D&D, that might be different. You don't have a wide variety of clothes. But if you're writing for the modern era, it's very difficult to do the clothing aspect. You might go into a little bit, like, for example, if you're writing me as an NPC, you may say he very commonly wears superhero shirts. It's a point of the character that actually makes a point about their personality. Is it worth it? Is there a payoff to understanding that? Okay, if I put in my NPC description that he's always he's always wearing comic book related clothing, this is something your players can use, right? If they want to build a relationship with that person, engage them in a discussion about comic books. Are they always wearing hero stuff? He's probably a person who wants to do good in this world. You don't see many people wearing Batman shirts out selling drugs. I mean, it happens. I worked in a school where there was a kid who literally sold drugs and wore Batman. I was like, got a problem with that. Batman doesn't deal drugs. But is there a payoff to that information? So I started removing that. But I did start keeping in my notes, just in a different section, I put clothing. Now, Aaron and I and Brian, we do a episodic, as everyone knows, we do a very episodic gaming. Now, one of the things is that I have, I'm not sure if I ever discussed this with the audience. I dealt with a little bout of some depression. I feel it's always healthy to discuss that with our audience, because if you two are ever dealing with some depression, it's smart to seek friends, family, and medical professionals to assist you through that. Fortunately, I only needed friends and family to kind of get through this little bout. I was traveling a lot, and I got a little under the weather with some mild depression. But now that I'm back in the saddle, I'm writing 5 games simultaneously. Aaron doesn't even know about 3 of them because I've come up with them in the last 2 weeks, and we haven't been able to get together because I've been on the road and busy schedules. And I got back last weekend and I said, guys, I'm just not in the headspace to do it, because I literally flew in one day, flew out the next day. Things were happening in my company and I'm running around trying to do everything. But back to the point. I did keep clothing in my thing, in my notes of the NPC, because for me, it has value. I like to know, what are they wearing? But the thing is that I started doing, because I don't know when these games are going to go off. Could be in the summer, because Aaron's game might take 5 months. And, in game time, 5 months. We might skip ahead and be in April or June or July. So what I started doing was dividing winter and summer clothing, right? So what do they wear in the winter? What do they wear in the summer? It's just a good tip to use, because if you write it in your notes that they're always wearing flowing dresses, what happens when it's -3 outside? What are they wearing then? Because you don't know if they're going to encounter that NPC in the future at a different season or a different location. What they meet this princess of a very Middle Eastern style kingdom, right? Where it's hot, it's desert terrain, and that sort of climate. But then she's up in let's go with a Norse style area, doing trade talks. It's just a nice little tip to use, so you have it for future use. And again, focus on those NPCs that matter. You don't want to waste too much time and get into the same problem that I did when I developed an entire subplot about kitchen staff planning the succession to be the next head chef.
This is always the challenge, which is the just enough problem. So yes. Jared's right. I mean, anybody who's really important, make sure they've got the right descriptions, make sure they know what they need to know. And then everybody else is sort of ancillary to that. But here's the thing that you need to do is to cover the just enough problem up. You have to have just a little bit more to make it look like you put enough thought into these other NPCs that it isn't just like that they're a possibility, that they're important in some way. And it also makes you, that extra little bit makes you look super well prepared and very much like a wizard in a lot of ways, because people are like, whoa, did he think about that? Did you like the question that you typically get at the end of a game? Okay. And if you've never sat in the GM's chair before, and this is why I would urge you to do it and try to understand it, is that the amount of stuff that your players are going to say at the end of the game, which is like, did you intend on doing XYZ? Did you have that planned? Like, I don't know if you had that planned. It was so cool. Like, I really liked that because, like, I didn't know if that was a thing. Like, there's a lot that goes into that, which is because you don't have the full picture behind the curtain. Having just that little bit of extra prep beyond just enough goes a long way to the illusion of really a well-prepared game. And that's really, really important in that regard.
The illusion of a well-prepared.
Well, it is. It is an illusion of a well prepared game because the idea is that your players think I know Jared didn't put enough work into Sheriff Friendly over there, and Sheriff Friendly must not be that important. Well, like that's what you get the more that you interact with more and more NPCs. And from I guess I'm kind of sort of speaking from our game situation, which is a lot of information gathering and who you're talking to and trying to unravel the mystery behind something. It's a little bit different than like, if you're doing like a D&D campaign, you might be more pointed towards the NPCs that you need to be interacting with. But your players are going to be drawn to different NPCs for different reasons. And to have enough of a description behind a lot of NPCs, does show that anybody in this world then matters. Okay. Like that's what you're trying to do is show that like this person could matter. They probably don't. I probably just gave them 5 seconds of thought, which is why Jared's formula is really great, because it's just like, knock me out an NPC and a description, and I can then sort of filter information through that NPC and, a personality through that NPC, and you're sort of none the wiser because I gave them that little bit of dressing on the front of them that you have no idea how deep I went into that character because everybody has the same dressing. Okay.
Yep.
And
precisely.
like that's the illusion that I'm talking about, which is the illusion of a really complete game. It's not every NPC you talk to is complete. It's just that the ones that you do talk to, everybody seems complete.
Right. And you can think of it like this in movie making. Even extras in the background, you can see how they look. They might not even have a speaking role, but you can see how they look. And just the description is enough to provide that, oh, that's a person, that's an individual. But getting on to point number, so clothing was my first one. My second one and third, actually, I get to say, do come from another system that I intended on doing a gaming session with. I intended, it's called Blades in the Dark. I love their book. I love the setting that they developed. The storytelling possibilities of this game are fantastic. If you have the opportunity to read the book or gather some of the materials, I highly recommend it. I will say that the combat and skill system is a little difficult to understand. I watched like 4 tutorials on it, still don't understand it. And that's why I chose to go a different direction, because I'm like, I'm never going to get this. So if you're up for a challenge with a new system, Blades in the Dark is definitely a good challenge, I think. But then again, I am of limited intellectual capability. I'm a dumbass. There are much smarter people out there than me who can look at this and be like, oh, yeah, this is easy. I was like, fuck, I'm going to have to make cue cards, God damn it. So the thing that I want to, but their character building is pretty cool. They had a section in there. And I'm not sure if there are other systems out there that have this. I haven't encountered one. It's the first time I have encountered it. It says there's 2 things you need to add to every NP, or 3 things. So I guess technically I had 4 things to talk about. Was closest friend, rival, and vice. So closest friend and rival. And this is, I can't stress how cool this was to build. So Aaron and my and Brian's game, as you know, it takes place in a lot of small towns in America. Because that's where the haunting happens. Look at any good haunting film. It's a small town in America. It's difficult to do major cities. Because, call the cops. Monster on the loose, call the cops. They will come. But with building small towns, I think this is really beneficial for our D&D players out there, because villages are small in the Dark Ages, which is what D&D is based on. It's not exactly the Dark Ages, but villages aren't very big. Even if looking at a lot of D&D maps, these are not large cities. They're pretty small. You can see houses. You look at a satellite picture of Chicago, you got a block. That's even difficult to comprehend how many people live in there. So the thing about the closest friend and rival is it lets your imagination flow, and it builds another NPC in your town without going, okay, who's the baker now? So when I started building this game that I hadn't told Aaron about, I started off with one major NPC, and I came up to the closest friend. I was like, okay, who's his closest friend? And then I said, okay, it's going to be this person. We'll say person X, and in my mind, I've just kind of let my imagination wander and say, what do they do? They're a bartender. Okay, cool. And suddenly, I had a new NPC for this very small town. The bartender, named X. So I finished up that NPC, and guess where it naturally led me? It led me to develop NPC X. I put in their closest friend. Now, NPC X actually doesn't consider, NPC Y, the next individual, doesn't consider NPC X to be their closest friend. Their closest friend is actually NPC Z. And it made another person. Now, sometimes you will come up against the buttress of NPC X and NPC Y are best friends with each other. Like, that's it. Those two are connected, and it doesn't give you another one. But rivals are different. So it let me explore, and what I didn't do was I didn't attach. It's having the rival is completely separate from the main villain. In building this town, the rival, let's take a hypothetical situation because I don't want to give away too much for Aaron. The rival is going to be, you know what? Let's make it the baker. And why do they hate each other? I don't know. They went to school together. The baker, was kind of a bully because he's just a bigger kid. And this rivalry has grown even to their middle ages. And it's such an innocent thing, right? It's a rival. It's not an enemy that I must destroy and kill. It's just simply a rival. It's their person that they just can't stand dealing with. And it creates a more natural environment. Because think about it. Most people that you don't like in your life, you're not looking to take them out back and bury them in a shallow grave. You just don't want to deal with them. Just like, get out of my life. The less I can deal with you, the better. Right?
It's that person at work that you don't like. It's the, it's
right.
It's the guy down the street that you're just like, I can't stand Gary.
Right.
Sorry,
and
Gary.
Gary's going to write a very long email just for you for that. Go get him,
Gary. I appreciate you very much. I picked out a name and I'm like, crap.
That's the name of a guy we know. But it's that person down the street that I cross the street to avoid just because I don't want to deal with them. And it's so much more human. It's so much more soulful. You can even do this with other species like lizard men or alien races like the Mon Calamari. If I'm saying that right. Oh my God, if you Star Wars fans go after me for that, fine, I'll stick to Star Trek. Vulcan, even Vulcans have rivals. They try to suppress their emotions because I know a lot about Vulcans, okay? They try to suppress their emotions. Doesn't mean they're emotionless, okay? They still have that, okay? It's not sucked out of them. But what it welcomes is that more soulful, that more human element to your NPCs, which makes them more human to your players. And it grows these small communities. And it can get out of control. And that's where, Aaron's warning is really vital to follow. Because, if their greatest rival is a woman 5, blocks down that they just don't want to talk to, and they're like, oh man, you're horribly bigoted. I hate talking to her. Don't dive into making that NPC just because they live 5 blocks down. It just makes that character more human. Leave that NPC alone. I don't need to make the grandmother who lives 5 blocks down. Okay. That's where you gotta limit it.
You actually, again, going back to the just enough point there, I mean, what Jared's doing is you're opening up a big web of, you can end up 30 people down the line, and you're like, none of these people have anything to do with my story. Right. And that's you don't want to be in that spot either. So, like, what I like about your approach here with the rival and the best friend is that you go, hey, here's the people who are important to my story, okay? And then I can just kind of add some spokes to these people to be able to flesh out the world. Because then when I talk to these people, or when I talk to people adjacent to these people, then I've got people now who are able to connect me back to the people that I really need to know to get the story completed. There's actually a very interesting article. So at work, we have a tabletop RPG Slack group. And, I go into it, and there is a conflicting opinion on one of these things to do, like with working through like a mystery or working around a game itself. And one of the GMs who spoke up there actually spoke very true to what we sort of preach here in this podcast, which was, if you leave the town and the tower's in the north and they go to the south, the players don't know the tower was supposed to be in the north. Okay? They don't know. So if you put the tower in the south and the players run into the tower, guess what? Your players aren't any wiser to that situation unless you wish to divulge that information to you. And somebody said, well, that's a pretty contentious point. Like, a lot of people will like say like to hell and be damned. I'm like, you always have to build yourself an out, though. Like, if you are not willing to build yourself an out, if you are not willing to adjust on the fly, you are likely going to be met with a lot of people sitting there going, I don't know what to do next. Okay. Unless they've been explicitly told what to do next. And even then, they're likely not going to do what you told them to do next. Okay. But what I actually ended up bringing up was somebody pointed out a great article about the best way to work around these problems, which is have 3 solutions for every problem, effectively. And like the reason why 3 solutions works is like, if the mummy's hand is behind a secret door in the dungeon, okay, if I don't have any other solutions, the only way to find the mummy's hand is to find the secret door. So I roll my check to find the secret door. If I miss it, okay, well, the key element to getting through the rest of the story is behind the secret door. So if you have no other ways to ascertain the information or to get to the mummy's hand, meaning like maybe you do a favor for someone, someone tells you about a mummy's hand that's in a dungeon, or maybe you do this other thing, or you read a book in the library and the book has the piece of information you're looking for. Now there are 3 ways to do it: the searching, the reading a book, somebody else has the information. Okay, now you have ways to get to that information, and that's sort of what the spoken wheel sort of thing that Jared's working with here with the NPCs, where you build your point, and then you have these other pieces that can get you to the piece of information that you need to get to. And so I really like the idea of the rival and the friend, because that then gives
it's closest friend. Yeah. And the thing is it doesn't have to be a friend. So that's the great thing about Blades in the Dark, is they're talking about their closest friend. So this can be a lover. It can be a family member. It can be just a friend. But it's supposed to be the closest person, the person that they divulge their inner secrets to and stuff like that. So it does, just as that one GM proposed, give that alternative method to getting the information. Because, for example, in Blades of the Dark, the book, if you're building Jared, the NPC closest friend is Allie, his wife. And she's not just a friend, she's my wife, but they just categorize it as closest friend. You could say closest relation if you wanted to in your own notes. And
rival is just the person that you more or less dislike the most.
Dislike the most. And it could be somebody that they want to bury out back 6 feet deep.
They're not like competing and I'm rivals with this person. Like we're always having a lawn mowing competition. It's not that. It's that I just don't like that person.
And maybe, actually, to be perfectly honest, I'm not going to debate the guy who wants to you compete in lawn mowing competitions 5 times a week, because that's something. That's something. Like, what is going on there? Because Blades in the Dark, what I really like about their system is they welcome your imagination to just flow like a waterfall. It welcomes you to embrace the enjoyment of world building and creating your story. It's not so cold and formulaic like I am. It's very much saying, let things flow. And when the water dribbles out into a different direction, that's okay. I really have to say the people who designed the story of Blades in the Dark, those elements and components, they really did a fantastic job. If only their combat and skill system was not so really goddamn complicated. Hopefully maybe one day they'll listen to this podcast and reach out to me and explain it to me, because I would love to talk to them about it. Heck, maybe we'll reach out to that, see if we can interview that. So one of the things that the rival is supposed to be is definitely that person that you are I don't want to use the word enemy. It's too strong, but it can be the enemy. It can be the guy that
it can literally be the word, it's my rival, or it could just be the guy that you just don't get along with, that you just don't want to see. Like, every time I go to the store, there's this guy who's sampling every deli meat, and I'm like, hate that guy.
And rivals can change over time. Friends become enemies. Enemies become friends. I mean, Jesus, even I have a rival, and I tend to be a very forgiving person. I'm a Catholic. I get Catholic guilt when I don't forgive somebody. Like, I'm like, oh man, I hate them and I shouldn't do that. Catholic guilt, it's weird.
But again, those are very interesting points, that when it comes down to the rival. What is your third point?
The vices. So the vices, when I looked at White Wolf, when they did their reconfiguration, they did like Vampire, what was it called? Something with an R. It was Werewolf of Forsaken, Vampire, the
Requiem or something?
Yeah, the Requiem. Vampire, the money-making scheme, because I'm sorry, I will lambash against White Wolf. That was all just a money-making scheme. All of it.
It always is, Jared.
Well, no, they went too far. Like, I am angry about them, and I was so happy when they came out with the Onyx Path and just reissued the books with more information, compiling all that information. So the third one is vices. Now, these are not cold hard vices like they welcome you in White Wolf. Like they say it has to be the 7 deadly sins, essentially. Greed, lust, vengeance, or wrath. Wrath is actually vengeance. So Blaze in the Dark does categorize it a little bit too much, in my opinion, because they make it weird. They make it, they have certain categories. But I took their system and I made it more like their closest friend and rivals, and like the rest of their book. It was kind of an off section comparatively to the others, because it didn't just follow that path of blah, 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 blah. Here's a lake, jump into it, of creativity. So the thing about it was vices is supposed to be what you take your pleasure in. And it's something that refills your cup, right? If you were doing Jared the NPC, you might say it's video games and role playing. I love playing video games. I love role playing, and it's something that refills my cup. It's something that I do when I have that opportunity to do it, and I don't go, it's something that I enjoy and I actually actively seek and engage in.
That's actually really interesting. That's how they describe it. Where it's not like this is something I need to have to satiate my life, or to get by day to day. It's more of what I need to do to recharge my batteries. That's the interesting.
It's because there's something, and there are people that follow that lust for them is how they recharge their battery. They go out, they date, they try to find some way to make a physical relationship happen. And when they do, they're happier for it. There are those people that do go out and seek violence, and they're happier for it. And not even in a negative way of like, I'm a hitman and I love really being a hitman. There are those individuals, they're serial killers that's their thing. But, there are the people that are boxers, pugilists. That for them is a release. It refills their batteries when they get in there and hit the heavy bag or hit another guy. They love that shit. There's people who really enjoy shooting, even more than I do, because shooting is something that I like to do, and I love to do it. It's something I don't have the opportunity to do a lot, so I don't find it very recharging for me because it's not very accessible, right? I just can't grab and go. I can just pick up my laptop, bam, start gaming. I'm now, a Viking out in Valhalla. I can pick up my laptop. I can start creating stories and being creative. And when I get up, I am happier because I'm getting those juices out. And when you start building that what it does is it welcomes a very cool scene, right? When your players go to meet their NPC, not when they're engaged in their job, right? Let's take the tavern guy, right? The bartender. We love picking on the bartender. The bartender, he's going to have a day off every now and then. What is he doing when the players come to meet him at his home? I don't think he's there cleaning the glass. Like, yeah. Or maybe he is. I don't know. Maybe he's, got a touch of what I got. He's got OCD and he really loves cleaning.
That's such a good point because, if you're going to talk to somebody, especially in a modern situation, in a modern game, it's a little bit different in D&D because in D&D you'd probably go to like the tavern and be like, hello, Mr. Tavern Keeper. What's going on? Like, talk to me.
But that's the basic way. The tavern keeper, now granted, in the Dark Ages, essentially your career was 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but there was very little free time, but there was free time.
Yeah, so this is interesting because in the modern nights, the modern era, when you're kind of thinking, the standard 40-hour work week for a lot of people, you look at you couldn't just typically if I went into a bar, I started trying to talk to interrogate the bartender. Okay, they'd be like, it's freaking busy. Can you not talk to me right now? And
you come back whenever.
Can you come talk to me anytime that I'm not working behind this bar? And that sort of spawns the next bit, which is like, okay, well now we're gonna go. Maybe they're willing enough to give you the information to meet them outside of work. Well, what are they doing outside of work? I go, rollerblading every other day, whatever it might be. So you can find me at the park. There's an example what you just said, you're going to go meet that person. Like, or you get an address for somebody who works at the bar, but you're like, oh, well, I'll just go meet them at their home. Well, you're either going to meet them before they're going to work, right after they get off of work, or like Jared said, on a day off. What are they doing? What's their demeanor when they get there?
And it gives you something about the character that just helps define them and makes them more soulful and human. Everyone needs something to recharge their batteries. When we're not recharging our batteries as human beings, we get dark. We hurt. I mean, that's going back to what I dealt with a couple of months ago. I never had time to recharge my batteries, and it started getting to me. And what this really does is it gives them activity. It gives them, it's funny, talking about our friend Anthony, former combat Marine, big old guy. He loves gardening and cooking. Like that is, I would say cooking is probably his vice. He loves to cook. Remember Aaron, I don't remember when he made the bacon cupcakes for Nick.
Oh, I only wish I could have had them because they sounded so good. They were like they were like bacon wrapped cinnamon rolls.
It just gives a new element because if you met our friend on an average day, if you just saw him, you would think him a very intimidating figure. He's got a very big beard. He's tattooed. He's a giant man. You
would think he probably shoots cans in the backyard every day,
and drinks beer and is a rough and gruff guy. But there's a part to him that just loves cooking. I mean, like you get him on cooking, oh my God, you're in for it because he'd be like, I'll give you the recipe. And he wants other people to join him in cooking. He loves cooking, but it gives him such a different element. When you come to his house, if you were creating that NPC, Anthony's house always smells like something that is really good going on in the kitchen. And when you don't smell that, I know he's been having a rough week or something's been going on because he's not recharging his batteries because he recharges it truly through cooking. I think he does. He'd probably disagree. You're like, no, I do it through manly stuff, but I'm sorry. He's a fantastic chef. And baker, because, those different things, but, it's such a wonderful element to put into your NPCs. And I'm not just talking about villains. I'm not just talking about allies. I'm talking about the townsfolk, the bartender that they always see at the tavern they always go to. And again, don't go too far where it's like every person needs to have this. But for the NPCs that you want to be important, it not only gives them more soul, but it spreads out. This person gardens. You can probably find them at a local gardening store, because they have to go for supplies. Where do they garden? Well, they garden in the back of their house. Okay, so now I know they own a house. And it just allows your free fall imagination. Because when you start going through that Socratic method of developing NPCs, you can really see some cool stuff. Because you're like, and that's why I wanted to share it in this episode, because I've started doing this, and I'm like, wow, this is a beautiful well. That I hope everyone can get involved in. Because I'm sitting there going, I'm typing up these NPCs, NPC Y and NPC X, and I'm like, oh, they own a house. Okay, well, this area really doesn't have houses. It mostly has, trailers. Okay, so what does their trailer look like? And it led me into their residence. So if my players go and visit this person at their residence, I actually have a very good description of where they live. It's probably not going to be, too vital, but it's something, and it's soulful. And I've been doing it for these 3 games that I've been developing in the last 2 weeks, and it has been amazing some of the stuff that I've been writing, pouring out. And so I would really encourage you all to engage in this. And there's one more. So I guess I did have four that I would like to do, and it's the information section. So this is specifically for more for your mystery writers, right? Your Call of Cthulhu, or just anyone who does D&D with more of a mystery focus. I have a section called information, where I literally imagine the NPC sitting in front of a black curtain like an interview of a documentary. And I imagine the players asking them questions and them responding. What I started doing was kind of, again, a waterfall technique. I said, who is the first person? I'm predicting my players. Who are the first person my players are going to talk to? And I started developing their information, and holy shit. One question led to another question, led to another question, led to another question. Tell me more about this person. And it started developing this other NPC that I haven't even started working on yet. Now, granted, I tend to do the information at the very end. I've developed my NPCs, my core NPCs, the ones who are going to be involved in this mystery. And then I build out the information because I kind of know what this person's like a little bit. So I'm not like developing NPCs on the fly. I know what they know. I know where they are. I know who's going to be there and who's not. So the cool thing about developing information in a waterfall is it kind of naturally fills into different people, because you ask NPC A and they respond talking about NPC B, C, and D. I know the next person I'm going to fill in with their information is NPC B, because they're probably going to go talk to B. And so I fill in with B, and B talks about C, A, C, and D. Well, now I definitely got to do C, because C's been talked about twice. So I start filling in C. And C talks about A, B, D, and now he talks about E. And it starts creating this giant web. The thing is what you got to know, and I will tell you this, is where to cut it off. Okay? Where's the conversation come naturally to a conclusion? All right? Because trust me, you can dive down this well so fucking far. And one of the things that I want to tell people is information sections are great. What do they know? Who do they know? But in the end, there's still dancing involved. So don't spend too much of your energy on, well, I got to meticulously write down everything they know. No, because you never know when your player's going to ask some random ass question. And you could be in an endless cycle of developing this information because, oh man, now I got to make sure this matches with that. And
you can't fit everything into there. Your development time is limited at some point. You have to produce a product at some point. This is true of anything in life, which is you can only, you know, if I gave you unlimited time, guess what? You'd still never finish it.
No.
But if I
developing an AI.
Yeah, if I told you that you have a deadline for it or a time that you have to finish it, then you will finish it. You'll figure it out. You'll fill in the rest of the information. And the key thing that you need to remember is that you don't need to have all the information day one. You need to have enough information day one to get you to the part where you need to fill out the other information. So which is why the surface level deep, everybody kind of is the same way. Okay, maybe you have some standard description sitting in your wings, some stuff that you're ready to throw out there on the fly in case they go look for some random NPC that you didn't think was going to be a part of that. Okay, that's always a good thing to have because, again, it makes that superficial level in the world, which is like, boy, it just seems really complete. Okay, and then what you do is with all these other little bits here, now you really are making it complete. You're connecting people through their vices, through their friends, their allies. You're connecting people through the information they know about other people. Like, again, these are all things that are really, it makes the flow look good. And a lot of this is experience. You have to do it a couple of times. And when I say you have to do it a couple of times, you have to do it probably 5 or 6 times before you really start understanding what direction your players like to go. Okay. And what direction and how much information you need to have behind the NPCs to really make them feel real and to kind of know when to dance out the other information and tease out the other information.
And there sums it up. That sums it up perfectly for me.
Perfect. Well, anyways, if you enjoyed this episode, please give us your thoughts. Give us your thoughts on how you like to flesh out NPCs. Maybe you're more of a on-the-fly type person with the information or descriptions. Maybe you like to have this. Have you ever gone too far? What's too much for you in the world of creating NPCs? Let us know. levelupyourgamingpodcast@gmail.com or facebook.com/levelupyourgaming. You can comment on the episode, send us a message there. We are also on YouTube, so
think about a web of connections, people that you love and enjoy who recharge your batteries, and then smash that like button.
Love it. And then, like I said, give us your thoughts. Subscribe to the podcast. If you aren't already subscribed to the podcast, go back and listen to the other episodes. Lots of other content here, and we will try to stop missing additional weeks here. But we do thank you for listening. So it's gonna wrap us up for the week. For Jared, I'm Aaron. Have a great week, everyone.
Have a great week, everyone.